at it on a Tuesday. Good morning, Maestro. How are you?
Boom, boom, baby. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. We've got a lot to get to, so we'll dive right in. We've got some talk of talk about an upset in SimWorld U. A couple of them last night. We'll talk some SMLB free agency, but let's start with the SWFL and the game that was on Monday Night Football last night. That would have been the Bengals and the Cowboys. Special teams gaff ends up giving the Bengals the win. They both now sit at 5-8 through 13 weeks. Your takeaways here, Maestro, from the last game of Week 14 of the SWFL season.
Well, Maestro, sorry about that. I tell you, man, the Cowboys, like my Jets, are the anti-Chiefs. They will have a lead. They will be in good position to win a game and find some type of way to hawk it up at the end, the same way like a baby bird hawks up that worm that they're not ready to eat yet. The fact that it happened with Oriwarie, who was just activated, right? The fact that he makes that mistake, doesn't secure the ball, doesn't secure the block punt, and the Chiefs able to take it. I'm sorry, I'm saying the Chiefs because I got them on my mind. The Bengals able to take it, go down and score. It just shows you how dysfunction within a team can carry out in these super small details. And I'm going to tell you something, man. It's not going to change for Dallas, like my Jets, anytime soon. Not that I'm talking about the Jets, but we're talking about the Cowboys, and they're just hot garbage, man.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I was supposed to care about last night's game between two teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. I'm going to be frankly honest with you, Maestro. I didn't watch a second of this football game because it didn't matter. We've got this week was truthfully a bad week of matchups in SWFL. The 1 o'clock slate was brutal on Sunday. The 4 o'clock slate was good. And then obviously the Chiefs game to close things out was entertaining. But last night's game was of zero consequence. And I don't know why in the flex schedule the SNFL did not move anything away. Why did we not sit here and get a better matchup for Monday Night Football? Because the Bengals are 5-8. They are not going to be getting in the playoffs when the number 7 team in the conference is the Chargers at 8-5. The Cowboys are now 5-8. They're not going to be getting into the playoffs when the Commanders are 8-5, and they have to go through the Rams, Falcons, Cardinals, and 49ers just to get up to that being in contention in the hunt zone. This game had no consequence. Look, I guess I do know why we put it on, because the Cowboys are ratings gold no matter what you think about them. But
there you go.
It was a terrible game to close out your Monday night primetime slot, Maestro, between two teams that pretty much played like their records would indicate.
Yeah, when you have some cat sitting in the corner office, right, and they're looking at the numbers on a little notepad and they pull out their pocket square. I'm a pocket square guy myself, so I can say that. It's not, nerd on nerd crime. The idea of what's going to guarantee me viewers and analytics, like you so aptly pointed out, but also something else. They put a lot into that game for that alternate stream with the players that look like the little Nerf players or whatever, the Disney broadcast, and there was no way they were going to change it for that, even though it was an AI generated thing that kind of backfired on the end, which is a whole nother story we won't get into today. But yeah, and look. The NFL's NFL. It's going to be rating goal. It's going to be in some form or fashion rating goals. Not everybody's mature as you and going to stay away from the game. There are going to be some of us with no life who've never felt the touch of a woman who are going to watch the game because that's just what we do.
Yes, The Simpsons is puppeteering the entire SWFL season. All right, let's stay in the league, but we might have some internal problems in Philadelphia, where just one day after A.J. Brown's comments about maybe there was some friction between the offense and the defensive end, Brandon Graham seemed to indicate that the relationship between Brown and his quarterback Hurts is simply not what it used to be. He since went back and apologized for that, saying that he did not know the whole story. Maestro, your thoughts on what is weirdly feels almost manufactured drama in Philadelphia?
Philadelphia's always had drama in the locker room, and I will say this from going back to the days of me being even aware of coaches and people inside the Philadelphia locker room when they were actually good on a regular basis, though not winning the Super Bowl, right? Last year was Sirianni versus Hurts. Now it's Hurts versus AJ Brown. By the way, that thing is something off the field, which is why the team has such a problem with it. It's an off the field issue between those two. But the real problem that should be had here, they should have a problem with Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, who has a running back who is getting it done like nobody else's business. They should have a problem with the offensive line coach. Oh my God, help me out, Jeff Stoddard, who has been the offensive line coach for a while, I believe, in Philadelphia, and he's working those guys Dickerson, Jurgens, Becton, and Johnson, that are just doing world-class work. That should be A.J. Brown's problem. The reason he's not getting past the ball, by the way, he was missing for 4 games anyway with the injury. Hello. The reason that he's not getting the ball, which is the on-field issue, not the off-field issue, is because they have a running game that is world-class and is leading the way for Philadelphia, and that offense is now functioning on another level, and you're winning. Dude, you're a receiver. Speaking as a former receiver, so this is not receiver-on-receiver crime, shut up and just win and be happy.
It's very confusing to me because you've won, 9 straight games, and there's drama in the locker room afterwards, and then you've got somebody else coming in to talk about how it's dysfunctional, and I thought we were done this. You talked about the Sirianni Hurts drama of the summer, and it's like, oh, Sirianni's going to get fired, and I was kind of confused then, and I thought this was over. I thought we solved this. This is weird. Look, if you're playing football and if it's not broke, why bother fixing it? To your point, you've got a running game that's fantastic. I think, sure, there's probably some larger questions about, is Jalen Hurts, a legitimate passing and rushing threat? I don't know that he is. I don't know that he's not. But I think it's a valid question now on this one because they've been so reluctant to go to him in the red zone outside of the tush push. So I think there's valid question marks about this team, but I really thought we were done the drama, and frankly, it's kind of uninteresting when it gets stirred back up. By their own admission, I think people would have just been like, oh, A.J. Brown, wide receiver, he's bothered that he didn't get more passes. Let's move on with life. And then, of course, Brandon Graham just says, let's stoke this fire and get it back talking again. So all of it, to me, just feels like I thought we were done with this conversation, and yet here it is, and the Eagles' internal drama is still apparently part of everyday culture.
You know what they used to call the locker room back in the day in Philly? They used to call it Harrisburg High School, because even when things were going good, someone was always stoking stuff in the locker room. That's our quarterback. If you know, you know. We can go from there. But you're so right, man. It's just right on the point. It's Philly, man. They're never going to be done with the drama. They can't help it.
Let's go to the SWLB, where the big question now in the aftermath of Juan Soto signing a 15-year, $765 million deal to join the New York Mets is, what does this mean for the next crop of free agents? So, Maestro, here are some of the names that could become free agents after this upcoming season. JT Realmuto. You've got Vladdy Guerrero Jr. You've got Josh Naylor, Yandy Diaz, Mitch Garver, Luis Arias, Brandon Love. Some of these, of course, have club options. Trevor Story, who's got an opt-out. Kyle Schwarber, Cody Bellinger. All these names. What's it going to mean for them in the new season, or rather next season, when you're coming off a summer in which Soto gets nearly $800 million?
The cool thing about what you just said is also the most horrible thing about what you just said. Of the names you just mentioned, right off the top of my head, those, 7 players are represented by 2 agents, and one of the agents has 5 of those guys. What that means is we're going to start, and by the way, they do not draw the sort of statistical attention the way Juan Soto did. So let's get that out the way first. And also, leave out the fact that Juan Soto, an issue has come out. The reason that Juan Soto was so apt to come to the Mets wasn't just the money, because he was offered quite a bit of money, over $700 million by the Yankees. It was a personal issue with how his family was treated by the Yankees, which is starting to come out now. What it means for those players is that, yes, they're going to see a larger payday than they normally would, but now what you have is the teams that are going to go after those guys to write those large checks, Marsh, are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. It's going to be the teams that don't mind being fiscally irresponsible or just physically out of their mind and should be locked up. The Dodgers deferred all those large salaries over the next 26 years, if I believe that is correct, which means the people who own the team will not even finish paying out the salaries once those players aren't even playing for the Dodgers anymore. The Mets owner decided to just put all the money in the pot, which means the luxury tax is going to hit him so hard that at some point I can see the Mets paying nearly each season, not only, let's say, just put out a crazy number, put out like $500 million in salary and $500 million in luxury tax money, because they're going to be so far over, which is like I said yesterday, it's like going to the drive-thru at McDonald's, but having to pay another $20 on your meal because you did not go to Wendy's. It's not monopoly money at a certain point. It becomes real. We've seen that with bad Mets ownership before, and it's not going to go away. Unfortunately, what that means is very few teams are going to sign the top-notch players, and when those players don't deliver championships, you know what all that money means, Marsh? Absolutely nothing. Say it again.
I'm actually going to say that it's not going to mean a damn thing. And here's why, Maestro. Because nobody is like Juan Soto on that list. The closest name you've got is Vladdy.
Agreed.
Nobody else is commanding $700 million. I think that we've almost entered into this like utopian free agency, because we had Shohei Ohtani last season who got over $700 million, and now we get Juan Soto. Those are once in a generation guys, and I think we probably overuse once in a generation, because I don't know how you have two once in a generation. So let's say, these are two of the, 5 in a generation type of players that are currently in the professional ranks of baseball. None of the guys on this list coming through are in that range. So what does it mean for them? I don't know. Vladdy Guerrero probably is only going to be a $300 to $400 million guy anyway. So it's not like Juan Soto getting $750,000 is going, or of $1 billion, is going to change that at all. I think that we are seeing baseball kind of return to what it used to be, almost truthfully pre-luxury tax. Because right when they introduced the luxury tax, you saw a lot of teams kind of be very reticent to give out these big contracts, right? When Bryce Harper was out there was all this like, oh, well, we don't really want to give him all this money because there could be all this, to your point, we got to pay other guys. And then baseball owners, particularly in the big markets, said, oh, wait, turns out we can pay the luxury tax, still make a boatload of money because we have 81 home games in a guaranteed money-making market. Yeah, we're just going to give them whatever dollar amount they so choose so that we can be relevant and compete for championships. Juan Soto wasn't going to change it, because nobody on this list coming up next season is Juan Soto. So Vladdy Guerrero might have a one-person shorter list, but even then I would be shocked, because you cannot go, if you're the Mets, give Juan Soto all this money, $750 million, and then say, now it's time for us to get cheap. You're going to be paying to bring everybody in. I actually don't disagree with their decision to not defer the money. It's kind of like, if we're going to pay the man, let's just freaking pay him right now so we don't have to deal with this later, where you become in the luxury tax for a team that has absolutely no prospects, no chance for a contention. If you're going to be good, pay to be good, and let's be good right now, and let's bring in all the good pieces we possibly can so we can be relevant and try to win a world championship.
And I'm gonna step back, flip it, and reverse it a little bit on this. For 1 second, what you said. Here's the thing: I don't think it's utopian. I think it's apocalyptic, because eventually that divide is going to mean we're going to have like a bunch of teams with a whole bunch of players that get paid a lot of money that might not be any good, and a bunch of teams with a whole bunch of people who don't get paid and will not get any media attention, and they're going to be like, who is that again? Oh, wow, Kansas City won the World Series. Who's on that team? That kind of thing, which is going to actually hurt the team. The good thing about Major League Baseball, real quick and dirty, teams make so much money from their national broadcast, their local broadcast, and their actual revenue sharing that $700 million is going to get cut by at least like 28, 29%. So there you go. Yay.
Yeah, remind me why we should care about the Pittsburgh Pirates when you know Paul Skeens is going to leave in 5 years. All right, let's move on to college basketball, where we had just 3 games on the slate. We'll get to our very brief Monday wrap-up, but let's start with Kansas and Oregon. Both of them, or excuse me, yeah, Kansas going down to Oregon. At home, the number 10 team in the nation loses to an Oregon squad that 5-7 now on the season, been anything but consistent. Your takeaways yesterday from Kansas's 8-point loss at home.
I'm not going to say Kansas lost. I'm going to say they got beat. I'm just going to get it right out the way right now. Kansas on the years averaging 75 points a game. They scored 74. They're 74. They shoot around 47% on the year. They shot 43% last night. They are 33% from the three-point range. They three-point line. They shot 26% last night. On the other side, Oregon, they normally score 62 points a game. They scored 88. They normally shoot 44% from field goal percentage. They shot 52% last night. And then they normally shoot around 26% from three-point range. They shot over 39% last night. And oh, by the way, they took fewer shots than Kansas did. They played better ball. They hit the market when they hit the market, and they simply beat Kansas. Full stop, period.
This was a terrible loss for Kansas. When a top 10 team goes down at home, it's pretty bad. Talked about this on the podcast yesterday, that there is this huge group of teams in the middle of the top 25 that I previously did not have Kansas a part of. I think now you have to put them in there. They're 8-6. They've fluctuated from being a top 10 team to all the way out of the top 25 to now working their way back into it. This is not a basketball team that is really all that good. I mean, they're above average, which means that in this season's top 25, they're like number 15. This was a bad loss. This was a bad loss to a not really great Oregon squad. Oregon's been decent, 5-7 now. They haven't really been good. They started off atrocious and they've gone hot afterwards. I just don't walk away from this feeling great about Kansas. Are they going to be in Hoopsteria? Yeah, probably, because there's just not enough deep talent right now in college basketball to warrant them being out of it. But do I think they're going to make it past the first weekend? By the skin of their teeth, and they're probably not surviving much in the second weekend. That's pretty much my takeaway right here. Are they a Sweet 16 team? Maybe, but that's only by default.
Well, you're give them a lot more credit than I do. I'm just going to leave it right there.
Let's head to our wrap-up, where we only had 2 other games in action. So run the tape, and we'll take you around SimWorld U. Let's start with Baylor pulling down a 12-point loss to Arizona. Khalil Erickson leads the way with 16 points. Corey Yams, a 14-point double-double, and the Wildcats back up above 500 on the season. A good night from Xavier McCarthy, if you want to call it that, for Baylor. 11 points in 17 minutes, the high scorer for the Bears. And then Mountain West, Nevada hosting Utah, a 69-61 win for Nevada. They're now 2-2 as number 18 Utah goes down. They're now 6-5. A big night on the Nevada side for Marcellus Blow, 18 points to lead all scorers. On the other side, Darian Cutright, a double-double, 12 points, 17 boards. And really the barometer for this Utah's team right now, Triton Hendon. He had a rough night, shoots 3 of 11, 8 points on the season. When he's rolling, Utah is a very dangerous team. He was not rolling. All right, that's our show. We're coming back tomorrow. Hit hump day in stride. We appreciate you coming on the show, Maestro. We appreciate anybody tuning into this. We'll be back tomorrow. Of course, our game of the week is coming up on Thursday. That's Creighton and Mizzou on 8 p.m. Eastern. So keep it locked and get ready for that one. Of course, Hoops returns tonight, Tuesday night, to SimWorld TV as well. All right, that's our show. We're back tomorrow on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.
Be the game.